Empire, there's always work to be done. Fan outreach, things behind the scenes, getting ready for perhaps the relaunch of a libation that you may find across this great state of ours. But keep them busy. Keep them busy.
Carry the G Cream Ale. You're
And
making me
ours is
thirsty.
and ours is coming out. We're gonna have a night where we just drink daggers.
There you go. I love it.
Going to be epic. So, all right, Nags, let's chat about what lies ahead and what we're going to glean from these joint practices. In your humble estimation, are these practices, do they have more value than the actual game that we'll see on Saturday night at Lambeau Field?
I mean, to the coaching staff and the people involved, probably. I think for fans, it's very, the game is the thing. You come to Lambeau, the atmosphere is great. Not that it won't be phenomenal for the joint practices, but the starting and stopping, the drill work. There's long stretches where there's not a ton of, I guess you would say, exciting stuff happening if you're a fan. But for the coaches, yeah, the practices are way more important. I think exponentially so, simply because they can control it and they can use and work on exactly what they want to, as opposed to a game situation where the reps are valuable. There's no doubt about it. There's great evaluation tools available to you afterwards when you're breaking down the tape. But you're kind of at the mercy of your opponent and the flow of the game. And hopefully you see certain things. Like you get red zone work and you get, obviously, 4-minute drives or 2-minute drives or things like that. But you can script all that in a practice situation. So for the most part, yeah, the coaches will probably get the most, and the personnel people will probably get the most out of those joint practices on Wednesday and Thursday.
So, Nags, we haven't talked to you since the game.
Yes,
Top
sir.
line. What do you think? How do you feel about the team? I know you feel great, but I mean, based on what you saw, has your opinion changed about, how they may perform?
No, not really. My greatest takeaway from that game was how energetic and youthful and just up for it that squad looked on Friday night. And it's palpable. The idea that clearly it's a roster reset, right? They're extremely young on offense and they've got some new blood on defense. And I don't know what it is, but they are completely different from and Matt mentioned it on, I think it was Monday when we talked to him. This is the play style, the physicality, the whistle-to-whistle intensity was noticeably different. Now, it's a preseason game. Who knows what happens down the line, this next preseason game or even these joint practices. But, man, on that Friday night, like I said, it was palpable. You could feel that the sense around the team was just different. And I think, obviously, youth goes into that a little bit. A lot of guys fighting for jobs, trying to make a name, trying to turn some heads. But they really felt like they were kind of playing for each other, and you love to see that this early on.
I have a friend who is a lifelong Packers fan who's never lived in Wisconsin. He's born in Ohio and lives now in San Diego. And he is a keen observer. In fact, he's in the media of the NFL.
Right.
And he has described the Packers in recent years. And I know this is going to strike you, Nags, but he called the Packers to me in our private conversations soft and slow.
Oof. Two things you don't want to be in the NFL.
Two things you don't want to be in the NFL at all.
No, sir.
But some of that came because the Rodgers complacency, I think. That whole, the giant eraser that he was to make mistakes. When you make mistakes, he could erase them.
He was a great deodorant. Like there's no doubt about it.
No doubt.
Question.
He made you overlook some flaws that were there on the personnel side. But you don't change that in a year. However, what I think has changed, and maybe, Nags, this is what's palpable, is that they're playing without the weight of expectations. They're not. This isn't Super Bowl or bust.
Right.
This is not that same. I feel it at the practice, at the practices. You
Absolutely.
Feel like,
yep.
Guys are a little bit loose. I saw it with Sean Clifford, not afraid to force balls into tight windows and take some chances.
Ready to rip it. How fun was that? I love.
Yeah, and so that is the vibe, and I think there's something to be said for that. Now, obviously, I'll take talent and I'll take pedigree and things,
right.
But that vibe of we got nothing to lose and young guys hungry to establish themselves, as opposed to having like an older roster, there's something there.
Zero question.
If it can be channeled and corralled in the right direction,
right.
Who knows?
Well, hey, remember, and this is not a perfect analogy, but I'm going to make it anyway because I don't care. There's the thing to remember, like when Brett was coming up, right? Favre was all over the map, but you saw the talent, right? And at the time, it was really frustrating at times, and he threw a lot of interceptions, and even Holmgren came close to pulling the plug, right? But it's that idea of you see the talent and you see the energy and it's on the up and you just need to steer it, corral it, develop it. And I think especially on offense, that is exactly where this team is headed. There's going to be a lot of fun times. There's going to be a lot of frustrating times. But to your point, it's the idea of being old and slow and possibly soft. Didn't see any of that on Friday night. Now, it's going to be very interesting to see what happens this week. The Patriots, they're known to be quite physical themselves and play whistle to whistle or even the echo of the whistle. That's another test, right? Matt's talked about it. That's another kind of moment where that intensity probably ramps up a little bit, and we'll see if these young Packers are up for that challenge.
Well, I've been complaining about that. I've been screaming for it. I wanted that nasty. Why do you think I love all the Georgia guys? Now, if you let the Georgia guys be Georgia guys, that will be fantastic. And the other thing is having never been around the locker room or in the locker room or been on the team or privy to anything, makes me uniquely qualified to comment
to speak
upon
on it. Obviously, clearly.
I'm going to just throw this out there, and I'm going to say that there was a level of toxicity that isn't there anymore.
I don't know, man. Like, hey, look, that's your viewpoint, and I get it. Like, I hear this a lot.
It's my point of view.
I get it, and I hear this a lot. But I gotta say, I think, man, a lot of that gets blown out of proportion. And I understand what you're saying, and I get that Aaron Rodgers is no longer there. Like, that's the elephant in the room, right? There it is. So,
by the way, that's every time
you mentioned
we have a taser.
We have a taser.
That's fine. Like, you brought it up. Oh, I'm sorry.
I didn't.
You're just talking general malaise. There was no difference this offseason. Nothing happened. Obviously, I don't even know what you're referencing.
I don't utter the name.
Yeah.
No, the name shall not leave my lips.
That said, I think, I think a lot of that gets blown out of proportion, and I think it gets unfairly dumped on the former quarterback in a way that probably is unfair at times. However, I get what you're saying, and I understand that you talk about, okay, they're old and soft. I don't think you could ever prescribe the softness to Rodgers, but I will say, I didn't say the whole name, but
just a half.
You could prescribe the idea that, okay, why were they slow? Well, he had to have Randall Cobb, and he definitely needed Alan Lazard out there. Well,
Mercedes
you took those. You got to have Mercedes in the building.
That's
a pretty slow
cut
group.
Your team speed down.
That's a pretty slow group. And now you flip the switch, and all of a sudden you've got Watson, you've got Musgrave, you've got Jaden Reed out there, you got Malik Heath beating guys into the parking lot. Like, it's just, it's totally different. But I don't put that on the former quarterback. I put that on the franchise trying to acquiesce and trying to win another ring with said quarterback. You can't have it both ways, right? I mean, he's this great, all-time great, and you're trying to make it work with and for him. Okay, now he's gone, and now we're on to something else.
I'm with you, Negs, because I covered, I saw Barry Bonds at his peak, and everybody was like, oh, it's a distraction. Like, it didn't really affect the other 24 guys that Barry Bonds was on. Maybe when he didn't talk to the media and they had to answer when he wasn't, they had to talk about him.
That's always tough.
But there was a lot of that with Rodgers over the years. Tase me, I'll take it. There was a lot of that, but I don't buy that. But how does the tenor of the coaching staff change? Like, obviously, it's a different level with Jordan than it was with his predecessor.
The former. There's zero doubt. And it's interesting, the up-downs at the beginning of camp, although they seem to have disappeared suddenly for the competition periods, right? And the way that Matt LaFleur has structured not only camp, but not just the practices, but their entire time in and around the building, in and around the facilities is very different. I've talked to a couple different vets, of which there are few and far between now. Now there's a lot of them have been jettisoned. But they were both saying, like, yes, the schedule is completely different. And some of the, thought behind that is, okay, of course the former quarterback was the face of the franchise for so long. Now it's Matt LaFleur's team. I mean, I don't think that's a crazy thing to say. I think most people would agree that for a long time you had to acquiesce to the quarterback, and now you don't. And I'm not saying one's better or worse or what have you, but it's noticeable. There's zero doubt about it. No question.
I think, I tend to agree. I mean, if you have a guy that is going to give you the glare, or you have to earn his trust,
right?
Or if you make one mistake, and you know that it's going to affect your career because you may not get any touches or balls thrown your way or whatever the case may be, you're going to play slower. You're going to play in your head. You're not just going to go and play all out because you're going to have that fear. And I think he saw that. I think there's some of that there, and I think that's legitimate. I mean, it happens.
You'd have to talk to every one of those guys, but I hear what you're saying.
Well, they're never going to admit it, but
I know.
I mean, we've
That's
all
my point.
done that. That's how I felt with you the first few months I worked with you.
I mean, I am
I mean,
so intimidating. I understand.
I was
Yeah.
so,
I get it.
but I was so careful about what I said.
Nags is the intimidator.
Right.
Absolutely.
Right.
But you
That's
know where
fair.
I'm coming from. It may not be something that's deliberate, but it's something that's going to weigh on your mind. And
on your subconscious.
it happens
perhaps.
at every
Yeah, I
level.
feel that.
it happens
I
with
feel it.
every player. And because
There
the
you go.
coaches say you're not
It's-
going to get good until you play the game.
Well, did you
there is
hear
a-
They're
Matt?
thinking.
Was it
Yeah.
yesterday? Matt was saying, or was it 2 days ago, where he said like there were plays where those guys were going 100 miles an hour. They were making mistakes, but at least they were on the same page. Like there was a moment where
Absolutely.
the coaching staff looks at each other and go, "What are these guys running?" Like, but they're going a million miles an hour. And to your point,
But it
yes,
worked.
the idea that I got to walk on eggshells is totally gone. Like you are going to fly and you're going to make mistakes and hopefully learn from them.
You make them all out,
Yep.
going all out,
1000%.
That's right.
balls
And
out.
there's a whole clean slate feel about it. We're chatting with Aaron Nagler, Cheesehead TV here. It's Tuesdays with Nags on the Drew and KB program. Okay, Nags, Carrington Valentine, well chronicled. He's been the breakout
Come
star
on now.
of
Come
camp.
on, Karen.
Let's go.
Give me number 2 and number 3 on the list of guys newcomers who are popping in Aaron Nagler's viewpoint.
Wooden, the defensive lineman that they picked on day 3 of the draft, his first step is legit, and I think you saw more of that on Friday night. You've seen it at every practice. You saw more of it Friday night. He's exciting. I'm going to cheat, and I'm going to use a second-year guy in Devontae Wyatt. You think about a guy who, man, you were so kind of wondering, is he going to show up and hit the ground running, right? Because you used a first-round pick on him. Didn't see him until late in the season last year. But, man, he has – I'm not going to say he's arrived, but he has certainly picked up where he left off and or taken his game to another level. I mean, there's not a rep where you watch him where you don't see the explosiveness. You don't see the physicality that they clearly liked when they selected him last year. Didn't get the chance to see a whole lot of it in 2022, but I'm telling you, in 2023, this kid's going to cause some problems. He's at times he's unblockable. I'm so excited to pair him with Kenny Clark and these other young defensive linemen, and hopefully get some disruption going up front because we know the Packers have really struggled in that regard.
Let's dive into that a little bit. You said something that was really interesting. You said Wyatt was a day 3 guy, and so is Carrington a day 3 guy.
Well, no. Wyatt was a day 1 guy. Wooden
He was a Wyatt. Okay,
Wooden.
Wooden
Oh,
rather.
you think
I'm
Wooden.
sorry. I'm sorry.
Wooden.
Wooden is a day. So you got Carrington, Wooden, 2 day 3 guys.
Right.
That is a big feather in Goody's cap. So all the people that are all over him over this Rodgers
For not
thing,
signing free agents.
for not
Right,
signing.
right,
If he's,
right.
if
Mhm.
I didn't say Rodgers,
Now you just
You
did.
said it again.
but no, but if he's pulling day 3
Right,
guys,
I hear you.
right?
Okay,
and they're
right.
contributing, and
Yeah.
they're catching everybody's eye. That's
it's-
good.
Now, what am I going to say? Now,
I
think
know.
hard.
I
What am I
know.
going to say?
It's still camp, and there's a lot of ball
A
games.
lot of ball game left. A lot of ball game left. It is not time to put any feathers in anyone's cap. However, yes, it is incredibly exciting to see
Yes.
possible, contributors out there in camp. Like, how many times have we gone through the excitement at camp and then gotten into the regular season and you get next to nothing from a rookie class? Now, last year's class played a lot, sometimes because they had to, and they certainly look like, oh man, that's a class you could build a foundation around, right? I mean, there's contributors up and down the kind of the entire draft class. Not ready to say we're there with this class yet, but yes, those day 3, a couple of day 3 guys are certainly flashed early, and you get excited. You're very excited about it, but there's a long, long way to go.
Long way to go. All right, Nags. Last thing for you. The Patriots come in. It ain't Tom Brady. It's Mac Jones, but Bill Belichick still has that kind of regal air about him.
Yes, he
So,
does, for good reason.
I think the Packers are all the way through the organization. They want to put their best foot forward and put on a good showing this week. What does that mean in terms of on the field? Like the accommodations, and they want to be as big league as they can for their guests, the way the Bengals try to put out the red carpet for the Packers last week. So what does that mean in terms of what we see in the practices and what the Patriots do, like in the facility and stuff?
Well, it's interesting because, I remember there's been a couple of times where they've held these joint practices and the opposing team has, some members have kind of leaned into the bike riding and all the pageantry, right? But some teams are like, oh, it's a business trip. We're not here for that, blah, blah, blah. I suspect the Patriots will most likely be the latter. So I think the biggest kind of component that you want to kind of focus on if you're the Packers is just the football, the facilities, getting them to and from whatever meeting areas they're going to be in the facility to the practice field, all of that. If they can make that as smooth as possible, I think that's the biggest thing the Patriots will most likely be looking for. I'm fascinated always by the idea of like these guys coming to Green Bay from wherever. But look, the way it's built up around Foxborough with they have a facility similar to Titletown, like an area very similar to Titletown, and I think the vibe and the feeling around the team is similar in that regard. Now, obviously, it's associated with Boston, much bigger metropolitan area, but I don't think what's going on here in Green Bay in camp is going to be that dissimilar for anybody involved with the Patriots. It's just a question of how much they want to kind of join in with it's Packers camp. Look, the kids are riding the bikes. Their fans are out there for autographs, etc. Because there will undoubtedly be people looking for Patriots players that look, Ezekiel Elliott's going to be in town now. So I'm sure there will be, autograph hounds and things of that nature. But for the Pats, it's pretty much a business trip.
I heard Zeke and Bailey Zappi were going to go hang out at Stadium View with Aaron Rodgers and Matt Ramage. I mean, it's Aaron Nagler and Matt Ramage. He just got me.
Gotcha. We did that Friday night. It was so much fun. It was a ball. We had such a blast. I haven't had that much fun watching a preseason game in forever.
So it's back to the normal watch party for you on Saturday.
No, not till the regular season. For the game on Saturday, I'll be in the press box.
Well, all right. You'll be with us.
There you go.
The Unwatched Media
I'll be seeing you.
Fantastic. Well, we'll be seeing you, my man. Next, thanks for joining us today. We look forward to chatting with you on Friday after we've had 2 days of joint practices.
2 full days of practices to talk about. I can't wait. I'm excited.
Epic. Thanks, Nags.
Thanks a lot, guys. Have a good day.
Thanks, Nags.
Aaron Nagler, Cheesehead TV. He's right up the road. He's in Green